In our first story, health facilities in the Upper West region are their wits' end and unable to buy basic consumables.
Some of them even don't have paracetamol at their pharmacy shops, they say. These facilities have blamed this on the delay of the National Health Insurance Authority to pay claims owed the various health facilities in the region. Some of those facilities have made frantic efforts to make patients pay for partial treatment, but that has been met with stiff resistance from the patients. Rafiq Salam visited one of such facilities at Jirapa and reports.
Simple put, medical facilities in the Upper West region are on the verge of collapsing due to the inability of the National Health Insurance Authority, NHIA, to reimburse them claims they owe them for the past 11 months. The St. Joseph's Hospital, located at Graba, is no exception. The NHIA indebtedness to the hospital as of December 2016 stood at 2,510,783.04 Ghana cedis. For the year 2016, they were only paid 90% of their claims for March and April. Since then, they have turned deaf ears to the several appeals made for payments for the succeeding months. Addressing stakeholders at the annual performance review meeting organized by the Graba District Directorate of Health, Medical Director of the St. Joseph Hospital, Dr. Richard Wudaseme, expressed worry over the delay in the reimbursement as it has impeded efficient and effective health delivery to patients at the hospital.
We are in arrears of over 11 to 12 months now. What that means is that it stifles resources that ordinarily would have come to the hospital. And so the hospital are unable to buy very basic consumables. It is not an open secret that nowadays when you come to the hospital, you can't even get paracetamol because we do not have the resources to buy. What we sought to do was, could it be possible that a token could be taken from the clients in such a way that we'll be able to provide the very basic and minimal services that clients would need. But that has often been resisted by the same patients that we serve. So we are only reliant on health insurance. And as I often describe it, the reimbursement from health insurance can best be described as epilepticus and erraticus.
It is not only hospitals here in the region that are caught in the web of the non-payment of the claims by the NHIA, but the district health directorates as well. Phoebe Balogun-Yentimi is the Graba District Director of Health.
We usually depend on some vertical funder. Some programs like UNICEF could come and say we want to help in nutrition, we want to help in that. And if we get little funding from nutrition, we integrate all the other activities, because you can't get some activities virtually have nothing or programs have nothing. We want to do away with leprosy. Leprosy has no money. You want to do away with meningitis. Meningitis has no money. But these are the things that are bothering you. And so if you bring me money for nutrition, I will use part of it to work on these other areas. And that is where we talk about integration, to make sure that the limited resources or the scarce resources that we have will be used judicially.
Another area of concern for the Graba District Director of Health is the rising cases of teenage pregnancy and unsafe abortion. Reporting for GJA News, Rafiq Salam, Graba.
Contractors working on the 135 million Ghana cedi police hospital redevelopment project are said to have abandoned the project.
Parliament approved funds for the expansion some 5 years ago, recognizing the strain on the 35-bed ward at the hospital. Compared to serve as many as 5,000 patients annually, the hospital is unable to effectively cater to patients' needs. A senior medical officer at the facility revealed at a donation by the Melcom Group to the hospital, the project had stalled despite the full project amount being approved by Parliament back in 2012. Joseph Akable has put together this report.
For the many children in the ward, they are calm, awaiting the day they depart to their homes. The redevelopment project, which commenced more than 4 decades ago, has stalled for years. In 2012, the Parliament of Ghana approved a loan agreement worth 135 million cedis for government to uplift the status of the hospital and ease congestion in the wards. This is not to be, as the project is at a halt. DCOP Dr. Marian Tetekobo wants government to intervene.
We really need expansion. We are hoping that you see this big structure over the new hospital. It's been there for years, and one of the things we need is we pray that the government will actually come and complete it for us. And if it's completed, I think that it will serve us very well. How
long has that project stalled?
Oh, so far as I can remember, I think it's more than about 15 years. Yes, so this is an opportunity. I will ask, that if that is done, I think that will give us more room.
Director of Communication for the Melcom Group, who led to present items, explains it forms part of moves to help the country.
We have an opportunity to also find out what the hospitals need. They are busy doing their jobs, so my office will go in there to find exactly what are your needs, and if we can manage, we supply.
More donations may pour in going forward. The big question remains when the project, expected to enable the hospital adequately supplement the 37 military hospital, will be completed.
We turn our attention to education, and several schools in the central region are said to have resorted to finding alternatives to classroom teaching due to a delay in the completion of new classroom blocks for these schools.
Some of the classroom blocks under construction have stalled for several years now. One of the schools our regional correspondent says has been badly hit is Academy of Christ the King, a senior high school in the capital, Cape Coast. Richard Kwejunyako reports the students study under canopies, a situation teachers and students say is affecting effective teaching and learning.
It is Wednesday and schools are in session. Classes are ongoing, but for students of Academy of Christ the King in Cape Coast, a government-assisted institution, some students have to study under makeshift structures. In the case of Academy of Christ the King, the students have to study under canopies. Over here, 6 rooms of canopies have been erected by the school authorities to make teaching and learning go on. The same canopies serve as the dining hall of the students during time for their meals. Over 100 students are crammed under 2 rooms of canopies. While some fan themselves while lessons are in session, owing to the heat under the canopy, many other students are distracted because of where they are taking their lessons. The teachers in this school have to make do with temporary teaching boards placed under the scorching sun and have to shout on top of their voices in order for students to hear them. Despicable is the most charitable description one would describe the situation. The students of this school feel disappointed in the development. They share with Joy News the troubles they go through in their bid to be educated.
When the sun shines under the tent, the heat just goes straight up to our body. It's so uncomfortable.
So how do the teachers cope? When they come to the class?
At times, they do not want it. It's their duty, so they have to go to class and force us to. More times, because the place is very hot and louder. We combine classes to stay loud, which is not the best. The place is too small for a large class, about 100 students.
It feels very tiresome because sometimes when we are about to study the course of it, all the 3 classes will have to combine themselves under just 2 tents. And when that happens, the place becomes very hot and uncomfortable to sit. That way, when the teacher is teaching, you don't even have the chance to concentrate and understand what he's teaching. It feels very hot under it. When you're learning, sometimes you don't even feel comfortable sitting at the place. You feel like coming out of the canopy to a more comfortable place, because when the teacher is teaching, you see most people holding their fans, fanning themselves. The whole canopy is very, very hot. Yeah, it rained once, and then under the canopy was very uncomfortable. You see mud under everyone's sandals. Yeah, the whole class was in total mess.
It is not only under the canopies that students study in the school. Many of the students also study under uncompleted structures funded by the Parent-Teacher Association. Like many schools in the Central Region, there remain abandoned classroom blocks. Most of the classroom blocks started about 4 years ago under the GET fund, but have been left unattended to. The contractors over the years have been complaining of non-payment of their contract sum, hence they abandoning the project. School authorities have remained tight-lipped because they've been barred by the GES from speaking to the media. Richard Kwejonyakon, Joy News, Cape Coast.
In many parts of northern Ghana, hundreds of girls are being married off against their will.
Often, the education of these teenagers is cut short, but with no one to help out, many of these youngsters suffer in silence in their villages. Upper East Region correspondent Albert Sori spoke to some of these underage brides in the Upper East Region town of Naga for our latest hotline documentary, Tender Brides of the North. Now here are excerpts.
Alice, as we have chosen to call her, is 14 years old. Her feminine features are not yet so visible. In the blue jersey she is wearing over a green pair of shorts, Alice can easily be mistaken for a young boy if one is looking at her from the back. The innocence on her face and the shyness with which she narrates her story to Joy News prove only one thing. Alice is a child, and there is nothing about her that should make any man want to take her as a wife. But when Alice paid her elder sister a visit at Du in the northern region, she was forcibly taken by some unknown men to a house where she was being held, ostensibly because she had been taken in marriage.
We came back from the farm and heard that someone was launching his music, so my elder sister and I went to the venue. While we were there, some young men came and forcibly took me to their house. They said they had married me. I had never seen them before.
Alice was made to return to her sister's house the very day she was taken. This was because she refused to eat anything her abductors gave her. After moving back to her sister's house, Alice knew that she was no longer going to be subjected to the ordeal of living as a wife at that tender age. But that was not to be. A few days later, Alice was taken again by these same young men when she went to fetch water from the community borehole. This time, the escape was easy because the man who had been asked to keep an eye on her was asleep. She ran back to her sister's house and immediately packed the few clothes she had and ran back to Naga where she had come from. But Alice's troubles were still far from over because her abductors would not so easily give up.
They came here and said they had spoken to the chief and he gave them permission to come for me because I don't go to school and I am not married. According to them, the chief said he will send someone to come and talk to my mother so they can take me away. I have since become afraid because I don't want to marry anyone.
And Albert Sori's Tender Brides of the North will be airing today at 8:30 a.m. on Joy FM's Super Morning Show, and then next Monday at 6:30 p.m. on this channel. That will be some few days after today.
Now let's turn our attention to other stories. And Ghana Journalists Association President Afel Moni says he's disappointed with the police handling of investigations into the death of editor of the Daily Telegraph, Bismarck Bebley.
Mr. Bebley died last month after he was knocked down by a speeding vehicle in front of the Kaswa police station. The GJA president says the Inspector General of Police has since been petitioned over the incident.
He tells Joy News' Efwa Evans Chinri they will not rest until they are provided answers to questions about Bismarck's death.
We've gathered that he was knocked down together with the policeman, and a vehicle came to attend to the policeman, and Bismarck was abandoned on the roadside. So it took a good Samaritan to rush him to hospital, but it was just too late. And we sounded the police up to the necessity to investigate what happened. We waited for some time, and still we didn't get a response. So we started to take it up with the IGP. So we personally went there and handed over the petition, and were asked to write a statement, which we did.
There's this perception out there that the GJA is a soft-neck organization. We don't push for things to happen. So you think that has affected, cases that you've dealt with in the past, and you think it will have an effect on the petition that you presented to the police as well?
So it will depend on the ferocity with which we attach to the pursuit of this case. And as I said, we are in a dispensation of rule of law. So ours is to raise the issue, petition, and it's up to the investigative apparatus to go to the bottom of the case, and those who are found culpable dealt with. And we cannot arrogate to ourselves the powers to prosecute. It is the duty of the police to first investigate and then refer the matter to Attorney General, which has the prerogative to prosecute or not to prosecute. So even though we have all the arsenals to make the loudest noise and to pursue this case to its logical conclusion, sometimes we are so many things. There are so many intervening factors, and sometimes we don't come to the public to say them.
Okay, so you believe this is an unjust death?
That is so. That is surely, yes. We believe that those deaths could have been prevented, and from what we are hearing and from the piece of evidence we have, the policeman was struggling with this guy, with a driver, and the driver carelessly knocked down the policeman and our Bismarck. And Bismarck was left to his fate while the policeman was giving expeditious attention. So that's a clear case of injustice. So we believe this alone should serve us as a weapon to fight our case.
Okay, but so have you heard from the police?
I was at the police headquarters today to do a follow-up. I was asked to make a statement, which I did. And the CID, Dakun, Inspector Dakun is doing the preliminary investigations, and he promises to call me. And so if it doesn't call, it will mean putting an appearance again to show the seriousness with which we attach to this case.
Okay, so how far are you willing to go? If you don't hear from the police.
The answer, we went to the very top of the IGP, who asked his men to investigate. So meanwhile, Kaswa Police was handling, as I said, we're not happy with the rate of progress. So we started to take it up at the headquarters. So the headquarters approach was to go to the IGP, who asked Inspector Daku to do the investigations. So based upon the findings of the investigations, we'll act.
And that's it for the news. And just in case you don't know, we'll be having a lot more discussions on AM Talk, and our guest will be joining us. Emmanuel Chemantin Ejakun is a member of Parliament for Iwaso West Wagon. He will be in the studio alongside a legal practitioner, a lawyer, and he's also a member of the NDC as well. Abraham Amaliba will be the other guest.
All right, now also very much a conversation that's been making rounds is the management of the National Service Scheme. They've immediately annulled the recruitment of some new workers engaged back in 2016. That's kind of one controversy. The annulment is on the advice of the newly approved Education Minister, we're told, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh. And this was contained in a statement signed by the acting executive director of the Secretariat, Yusuf Mustafa. So what it is if you were employed, Roland, and you got your letter in December 2016, you are no longer part of them. You have to go through a different process. I mean, it's all so confusing. We'll try and bring some clarity to this matter. But, you know, I can't be very stubborn. So I'm asking, can I sue them if they hired me and now they're giving out this circulation and that don't come again because due process was not followed in some instances? I could sue them, right?
I think so. I think the lawyers too will be in a better position to give you some remedies on this. And that's why we'll be speaking to an official of the National Service Secretariat. We'll speak to the director or the executive director or his deputy. And we'll try and get some answers on this and what also labor experts seem to think on the subject. You know, I just told somebody allegedly committed suicide because he was told not to, or taken out of the training depot of the Ghana Police Service and all that. But there's also been some reshuffling in the Ghana Police Service setup.
Oh, you say it well, shifting cultivation. Go ahead.
And so we've had the Ashanti Regional Commander of Police, COP Kofi Boache, being transferred to the police headquarters. He will be behind the decks in charge of research and planning. It's a position initially held by Commissioner of Police Rose Bio Atinga Yonohe. And so what do people in Kumasi make of the transfer of Commander 1?
Yes. We'll find out on the show today.
Erastus Asari Donko will be helping us do the discussion. He's been doing great things for us lately, and so we'll speak to him on the subject.
And of course, we'll also talk about the African culture and wellness
something
festival.
Mama is so much interested in.
Yeah, stay with us.